Hi everyone, welcome back to another video. My name is One of One, but you can call me Seven, and we return to Witch on the Holy Night. Our boy Shizuki has just seen the person that he claims to have witnessed murder somebody last night. It is a woman who was at the pachinko parlor that he works at on the side, sort of on the down low, and he ran away. He was like, I'm leaving work early, I gotta get out of here. And his boss was like, okay man. So now we're just after that, I believe. I think things are about to kick off. That's the vibe that I get based off of what we just saw, because we were getting a lot of set dressing, a lot of atmosphere setting, and a lot of character introduction and premise. And now I think things are really gonna start moving. At least I hope. So, let's get moving. The city in the mountains could not have been more different. He had been slow to recognize the differences and adapt. Acclimation was simple enough. Humans were nothing if not adaptable. Even without any effort, one would learn to adjust over time. Recognizing the challenges, there we go, had been the hard part. Actually, it's all been difficult. Sojiro grumbled a complaint he'd never uttered before. To be honest, he was still afraid to wander around town. There were so many things city people took for granted that Sojiro had yet to grasp. It was little wonder that this never-ending chain of surprises would wear on him. Oh, it isn't my body that's tired. That would explain the hallucination. If it really was a hallucination. He muttered to himself, then shook his head. That which exists, exists. Such was the way of all things. Tobimaru had called it a hallucination, but Sojiro knew what he saw was real. The city was a magical kingdom compared to the mountains. If there were real magicians secretly living here, that should have been no surprise at all. The thought alone made his legs tremble. It took him a moment longer to realize that they were quivering out of fear. He had feared the unnatural ever since he encountered a wild bear on a mountain path as a child. But this is nothing like that. I cried and screamed my head off back then. Sojiro smiled a little as he recalled his traumatic childhood memory. Anyone would have fainted at the sudden appearance of a growling beast that towered over 6 feet tall. The monster in the movie that Sojiro saw not 2 days ago was the equivalent of a cuddly stuffed animal when compared to the wild mountain creatures. He was reminded that he'd faced far worse before, and his ordeal now was something he could endure. That's right. The problem now is what I heard someone say at the end. What's catch and eliminate supposed to mean? At face value, the meaning was obvious, but the implications were simply too frightening to contemplate seriously. Perhaps he had misheard the words, or perhaps the speaker had misspoke. The law of the city means someone will deal out punishment eventually. Even as he said it, the idea didn't feel quite real. It was hard to imagine that it applied to him. Sojiro breathed in and closed his eyes. His vision dimmed, putting the illuminated cityscape out of sight and out of mind. For now, he resolved to put last night's events behind him. When he opened his eyes, his breathing had calmed. I wonder, what happened to Tobimaru when he tried to hit Elzaki? The question suddenly popped into Sojiro's head. He decided he would ask next time and stood up from his chair. A long streak of light blazed by, announcing the arrival of the next train. Oh, I've got a bad feeling about this. All of this has just been really ominous ever since she... Oh man, oh wow, I literally ended right before the next chapter, so this should be chapter 3, right? So, that lady, okay, I understand what's happening here. He saw something he's not supposed to see that is actually happening in the world. And now, he's trying to convince himself, hey man, it's okay. This is just city folk and like I'm tired and I'm having a hard time acclimating. So this is me adjusting, even though it definitely is not that. That woman was, she was scary. That's what I was trying to say. Anyway, let's keep moving. Chapter 3 is called Nights with an apostrophe S. Chapter 3, Nights. Let me tell you how the events of yesterday transpired. On moonless nights, you must never look back. Was it a lesson or was it a warning? It was so very long ago. At the time, I could not have imagined what my very being, would become. One night, it came without warning. I was filled with an anxiety so heightened that it made me want to burst into tears, so I fled to my grandfather's workshop. Unlike the grandfather I knew, he smiled and kindly placed his hand upon my head. Yes, the Red Death follows your every step. Rather than consoling me, he sent me home with only those haunting words. That night, I was certain that I sensed the shadow lurking behind me. Something or someone watching me from afar. Then, little by little, year by year, it drew closer. Eventually, the presence that once felt like a spot on the horizon grew so close that I could feel its breath down the base of my neck. Of course, it was all in my mind. When I turned around, nobody was there, but that night marked the beginning. In hindsight, I later understood that the indescribable anxiety I felt was the dread of certain death. Oh! Cool. Man, that's what I wanted to hear, man. Super cool. I'm having a good time. How much time has passed since that night? It lingered deep in the recesses of my mind where childhood memories are kept. A faded, storybook-esque memory. On dark nights, I still hear the faint echo of my grandfather's words, but no matter how strong the wind may howl, or how entrancing the song of the girl next to me, I could never bury his ominous words completely. It's here, the girl beside me said. Alice's inflectionless voice spoke volumes of her role as the bystander. That night, there was only me and her. It was the night I would mark as the birth of who I am today. For what should have been quite the memorable night, it sure wasn't a promising start. Dense clouds blocked the starlight above like a black umbrella. Strong wind tore through the sky, carrying the heavy clouds with it. The hands on the clock in the middle of the park pointed skyward as if reaching for the moon. Unfortunately for them, tonight there was no moon to point at. The winter air grew fiercer as the night wore on. Inhaling felt as though it would freeze me from the inside. The air chilled me to the bone, threatening to pass up my spine directly to my brain. To prevent my mind from being paralyzed, and to prevent my fingertips from becoming stone, I sparked a fire using my internal rhythm and emotion. I'm transferring tactile feedback to you. Good luck. Stand over there and the engraved will-o'-the-wisp will ignite. Okay, this is really, we're starting to see stuff. We need to lock in and pay attention to everything that's happening. Not that I haven't been doing that already, but still. I responded to Alice with a nod, and then, for just a moment, I saw the ground. I also don't know where this is in the time frame of things. My legs quivered ever so faintly, and I told myself they were shaking from the cold, but I wasn't so sure. In reality, they may not have been numbed by the cold, but by fear. I breathed a sigh of relief. My humanity must still be intact if my emotions are still present. Before I could sink into a pool of my own sentimentality, the sensations from the bounded field flowed from Alice into me. A transparent wall covered the entire park. An unrecognizable carpet rooted deep under the earth. Alice Konji's chants of the Mother Goose fairy tales permeated the night. The sensations became one with my body. I felt goosebumps on my quivering right arm. Someone had trespassed. The goosebumps crept up my right arm like ants and slowly but surely made inroads for my heart. Holding back the desire to drive them out, I waited for them to reach a certain definitive position. A moonless night, the park's quaint streetlights were not enough to lift the darkness. The ants came to a stop. Far, far from my right arm, they had reached my very heart. Even without the aid of my sense of sight, I could see the intruder lurking in the darkness. To starboard, in the bushes about 30 steps back on all fours, it was beckoning with its right hand. There! The enemy's movement and my perception of it were in lockstep. I spun around. Whoa! Whoa! The enemy's arm stretched out like a spear. Ooh! This lethal weapon aimed at the back of my head brushed my hair at breakneck speed. With the omniscient awareness granted by Alice's ward, I managed to avoid it by the skin of my teeth. Oh! It's like a marionette! My hair fanned through the air from the violence of the attack. The strike grazed my cheek and I felt a small, sharp pain. It felt like the kiss of death. Oh boy. I switched the flow of my body's blood to a different cycle. What? What does that mean? Huh? The blood running through my veins at a few feet per second transmuted into an imaginary element. My body became a single circuit and my heart transformed into a completely different engine. Within me stirred an unknowable motion of immeasurable heat. Something mystic, yet untapped by humankind, that made me who I am. It was the fire of life behind all miracles and fables. What we mages called magical energy. Oh, set connecting. I turned around, set the enemy in my sights, and held up one hand. Oh my god. My arm was the agent of my will. My lack of experience meant my magecraft would only be possible with the use of vocalizations and gestures. Magical formulae were engraved all over the park. Or formula. All I had to do was ignite them. I needed to direct the flow of the magical energy within my body into each formula. Typically, a mage acts as a conduit. Whether wired or wireless, the mage simply pours magical energy into the formula. Releasing this energy in the form of a projectile, stream, or any number of other methods would usually suffice. But in my case, it was the feeling of my limbs whipping out. Burn? Okay. Fire magic, it would seem. I fought speed with speed. The enemy's arm, extended 10 feet forward, became engulfed in flames. It was nighttime at the park. The scene, reminiscent of a campfire, but one in which the center of the flames contained a humanoid figure wriggling like a shadow puppet. The flame subsided just as unnaturally as it had ignited. No crackling, no burning smell. You can have the bounded field back. I'll check the remains. After telling this to Alice, I headed toward the motionless figure. I killed it. I killed it. I killed it. Regardless of who my opponent was, I just took someone's life. My throat parched. I swallowed the truth that without this sense of reality, I would have been helpless. So hard and bitter. Impossible to swallow, but I tried to anyway. I was unnervingly calm. My heart pounded and my breath felt heavy, but my mind was nonetheless calm. By the time I realized it, the charred remains were already in front of me. Bracing for a counterattack, I carefully examined the corpse. Everything seemed fine. This body lying slumped to the ground was nothing but ash. But something wasn't right. To begin with, its remains didn't smell organic. Not willing to believe my hunch, I took a closer look at the corpse's face. All that greeted me was the featureless white face of a mannequin. Damn it, they got us again? Screaming, I kicked the mannequin. The corpse crumbled to ash and disappeared with the wind. No, this was no corpse. This was just a puppet. And for all our efforts to lure the master out, we had once again been tricked by a familiar. My debut, my first test out in the open, would be postponed for another day. Damn. Will I ever pass this test? What? At that moment, I suddenly noticed something familiar in the corner of my eye. Something seemed strange about the slide on the other end of the park. It appeared as though its shadow were larger than it should be. Was I still drunk on the high of battle? It took me a second to realize what it was. Uh-oh. Startled by my voice, the figure wearing a familiar high school uniform took a step back, and then it broke into a sprint. Like someone running for their life. Oh, or should I say, he was doing exactly that. Oh, damn. I see. Shizuki saw her last night. Yeah, we've been spotted. In a rush, I shouted to my partner, but she hadn't even noticed the third party's presence in the first place. Though it wasn't as if I could move by myself. Embarrassingly, the fight had taken more out of me than I'd have liked. Go get away! We need to catch and eliminate him! Oh my god, there was no time for niceties. For us, being seen here was a matter of life and death. Get back here, you! Shaking off the numbness in my legs, I made for the park's exit. I had to admire his escape. The witness, party to the entire night's proceedings, had disappeared into the darkness of the residential district without a trace. You didn't sense him in the field? Complaining to myself wouldn't bring back the figure in uniform. Bitter at my own incompetence, I gave up the chase. Though temporary, the park had become Alice's woods. For anyone within a few feet of the park, other parkgoers' identifiable features and voices became murky, like the stuff of fairy tales. Tonight's proceedings may have had a witness, but if our identities were still hidden, then this was still a chance. It looked like a male from behind. Also, that means that the lady that he saw at the pachinko parlor is not the lady he saw killing someone. It was all a misunderstanding. But that lady, he said, what, immeasurable luck from her? That's what he sensed. He knew she wasn't cheating at the was it slots that she was doing? But, yeah, she exuded some kind of aura of danger. I returned to the park. That uniform was, without a doubt, from my high school. That was clue enough. If he was a schoolmate of mine, I had plenty of methods to flush him out. It's one thing after another. Amidst my grumbling, I set my priorities straight. Before some strange rumors spread, I needed to seal the witness's mouth shut. That was the highest priority, quickly and without mercy. Looking up, I saw Alice's previously distant figure. Though she wasn't as much trouble as I was with her existence as a mage also exposed, she had but one thing to say. This does in fact mean trouble, Alice. Her statue-like figure staring into the darkness seemed more expressionless than calm. I was pissed off. Her inscrutable voice resembled the moonless night so much it made me angry. And so it appears that is what happened that night. I see. Oh, yet another chapter. We're moving into chapter 4, Blues in Her Name. Okay. There really isn't any other way of saying this. I am a magician. Kind of like those witches in fairy tales who live alone in the woods and perform miracles with the wave of a finger. While the popular depiction of it differs from reality, it's closer to the truth than you know. Though, just so we're clear, no, I don't fly through the sky in a broom. I cannot transform into animals or speak with small birds. Modern mages are nothing so fanciful. Our existence sounds unbelievable, but we're quite grounded. Though it may seem like we can do anything, we're actually majorly constrained. And while I still have a lot to learn about it, this is my real job. Sounds a lot more romantic than being a high school student, right? Naturally, this is a secret I don't just share with anyone. A mage just must do everything in their power to conceal their work. That is the first and most important of the association's 10 laws. Not that I'm tempted to let the cat out of the bag in the least. My secret identity as an honor student is intact, and absolutely no good would come of me revealing my true nature. If anything, it'd only lead to more headaches. That's why I do everything in my power to keep it a secret. Of course, if I'd accomplished anything as a magician by now, then maybe I'd see it differently. I fantasized about revealing my secret life's work to a single, special person. When I finally make something of myself. Yeah, it'd be pretty stellar to just confess one day, by the way, I'm a magician. That idea alone is enough to keep me from spoiling the big reveal, regardless of the association's rules. My grandfather patted me on the head when I shared these thoughts with him. I don't know if that was praise or what, but I remember that his touch was gentle. I first learned that I would be succeeding my grandfather on the day I graduated middle school. When I returned home, there he was. Your elder sister left on a journey. From this day forth, you are the heir to the Aozaki. He said it in such a matter-of-fact way. I knew that the Aozaki family had passed down this old tradition of magecraft, but to be honest, I never imagined I would be the one to wield it. Magecraft is supposed to be passed down to a single child. It was my sister's role to take the mantle, and I had no interest in dedicating myself to so many rules and routines. I planned to live a normal life. I had hopes and dreams for the future. I felt bad for my sister, but I was determined to live my life my way. And while I managed to do just that for a time, I was blindsided by a vicious counterpunch. Since then, I've been thrust headlong into a world I'd only observed from afar. It was a hell of a way to start high school. But I suppose it wasn't all that bad, all things considered. A lot has happened since then. I was so dazed by this newfound life that a year of school motored right by. I was a second year before I knew it. Thankfully, nothing drastic has happened. The 6 months my roommate and I totally tried to kill each other, notwithstanding. As it happens, I've got a natural talent at this magic stuff, so I've yet to have any hang-ups there either. I'm only human, so I've had my fair share of headaches for sure, but never once did I worry about my future. I thought my life would be smooth sailing all the way. If only everything had gone to plan last night. Well, Alice Konji asked Aoko Ozaki the second she entered the house. Her dark eyes succeeded where her voice failed to communicate the gravity of the situation. Aoko took off her unflattering coat, hung it on the hanger, and sat down on the sofa. Alice sat across from her, with a table separating them. Any progress with those things? Not at all. I've only got 7 left that are any good for reconnaissance. I've been using them up fast and haven't had time to make more. Alice's gaze drifted from Aoko to the box on the table. Were none of them keeping watch that night? They've never let you down when it comes to this sort of thing, have they? During the day, no, but there's quite the risk when flying them at night. Meaning they were of the least use when needed the most. Aoko sighed. Well, how are you faring? You seem pretty confident this morning. Yeah, I guess everything's good on my end. I'm pretty sure I'll know by tomorrow. I told Tobimaro to look into all the students' addresses and schedules. Not many people wander the park that time of night, so it should be easy enough to figure out who it was. How can you be so sure? Because I didn't just join the student council to keep up appearances. I've been using my position to keep tabs on everyone. I have info on everything from part-time jobs to friends' addresses to what they're up to in their spare time. It's a list I was hoping to keep secret, but we can't afford to do that, now can we? That's why I keep the vice president around. It's the kind of thing he does best. Incidentally, the creation of this secret file started the moment Aoko became student council president. The mere rumor of its existence was enough to strike fear into the entire student body. As thorough as always, I see. Alice was only mildly surprised. It had been almost 2 years since they first started living together, and she knew as well as anyone that when Aoko put her mind to something, she saw it through to the end. Well, I never imagined I'd have to use it like this, but it's better to be safe than sorry. What happened last night was far beyond a mere exception to the rule. This predicament should not have been possible. More importantly, have you figured out what went wrong? And don't tell me it had anything to do with your link to the bounded field. Aoko glared at her. The ward was Alice's responsibility. If it was to blame for last night's trouble, Alice had to own up to her fair share. Alice and Aoko may have been roommates and partners, but it was a relationship of convenience. While lineage had brought them together, they were more like enemies than allies. Ultimately, they were just not a match. Where there was a blunder, it was punished. Where there was an opening, it would be attacked. If there was even an opportunity, the two of them would kill each other in the event of such a moment. Oh my god, why can't they just be friends? Why can't they just be girlies? Girly pups? They were, roommates? What the hell? Alice locked eyes with Aoko. Aoko's fierce gaze could make a grown man cower in fear, but Alice did not bat an eyelash. Her eyes are dead and empty, so I'm not surprised. Assuming the bounded field was the problem, wouldn't this have happened countless times before? I suppose you're right, Aoko agreed, as the question reaffirmed her trust in Alice. So you're saying there was nothing wrong with it? I honestly can't say for sure, Alice answered as flatly as ever. A bounded field is like a sanctuary sealed away from the real world. Steps are taken whereby a certain area is cut off from the outside world. There are various kinds of bounded fields. There are physical ones that close off an area behind a wall, and less tangible ones that use mirrors, mist, or trees to conceal that which occurs within. However, when closing off an area to the outside world, you cannot avoid communicating the abnormality's existence. In other words, the area may be closed off to the outside world, but it is impossible to hide the fact that it is closed off. And in time, someone will take interest in a sealed off area, even if they cannot see what is going on inside. Some might say this is putting the cart before the horse. The ideal field would be one that was both undetectable and impervious to interference from the outside. That was exactly the kind Alice had generated in the park the night before. Even if someone had a reason to be, or has a reason to be in a place, they shouldn't enter if you made them forget their reason for being there. It takes an immense amount of time and energy to create a field that produces a temporary illusion around a location you wish to conceal. But they prove it extremely effective for at least an hour or so, right? And to top it all, it was top class, made from your mirrors. It's not like they shattered while we were using it. The only other presence I felt inside was that of the puppet. If that isn't a perfectly constructed bounded field, then what is? I have no idea. The trees were prepared perfectly. I cultivated the trees and plants over several days, and it's always proved to be a reliable field. But maybe, just maybe, there was something I didn't account for. Alice's words conceded the possibility. Her eyes expressed her confidence that she had overlooked nothing. Well, crap. In that case, we better hope that the witness was the puppeteer, which would make sense. A mage would probably be able to penetrate it. Something else bothers me though. How did he avoid detection? The thought of being targeted by this individual was pretty terrifying. If they were able to penetrate Alice's field, it could only mean that their skill in magecraft was superior to Alice's. Alice, in her current state, would be completely helpless against such a foe. In her current state? I've already determined that it was not a mage. This was most certainly an outsider. The Starlings are one thing, but not even Robin was able to follow him. There are no traces of magical energy, so that rules out a magical pawn. Aoko was quickly running out of straws to grasp at, and that meant she was out of questions to ask. All she could do was call it bad luck and leave it at that. First, you get found out that you're a mage, now then you let the witness get away. Why couldn't I just have normal high schooler problems? The sofa groaned as she leaned back. Her gaze went up to the brown ceiling with a sigh. It wasn't much of a view. She was becoming increasingly depressed. Make up your mind. Her roommate's voice seemed indifferent, but Aoko just kept staring up at the wooden ceiling. If you're not up to the task, I can take care of it myself. The cool man and girl's statement carried an equally icy implication, and Aoko took the words in slowly with as much sincerity as she could muster. It was like trying to swallow molten lead. She's right. And I've already made up my mind. The thought sounded hollow even as it popped into her head. This was clearly different from last time. While the aim was indeed the same, the circumstances surrounding her target were clearly different. She may have been determined before, but that was as a mage. If enemies emerged, she would kill them. If she was challenged, she would step up to the fight. It was a fight between two mages, and her opponent was in the wrong. Even if this could only end in death for one of them, it was an outcome both parties could accept. Kill or be killed. Morality had no weight on the scale. But this time was different. Her opponent was neither enemy nor mage. Even if she was prepared to kill them, this person was likely not ready to die. That's why morality did factor into it now. Was she truly up to the task of murdering an innocent person? Could she swallow the fact that this was a common occurrence for a mage? She snorted sardonically. Being a mage did not mean that Aoko was some kind of monk who could cut ties with the real world on a whim. If there's one thing Aoko hated, it was doing things without conviction or an understanding of exactly why she was doing them. When she acted, she preferred to act decisively. I guess I don't have any other choice. As she said it, she got up from the sofa, having had her fill of the ceiling for one day. Aoko had returned to the Aoko of always, and Alice was done probing her. Take this. As if to reward her, Alice produced a small bottle. It fit neatly in the palm of her hand. The bottle looked completely out of place in her slender fingers. The glass was cloudy and it appeared empty. Some shreds of paper remained on the front where there was once a label. What is it? Aoko stared at the bottle suspiciously. It's a storage bottle. I had one to spare, so I'm giving it to you. A what? I forgot what it's called, but it's a thing out of a Chinese novel. Aoko was miraculously able to parse what Alice meant. That this is the red drinking gourd from the story about the two brothers who guarded the Lotus Cave? Don't take this the wrong way, but it looks like your everyday medicine bottle with the label ripped off. Alice looked at the bottle and acknowledged how ordinary it looked. She also understood that she would not be the one using it as she sat on the table, or set it on the table. Except this is a jade flask, not a red drinking gourd. That's not the problem. The problem is maintaining my dignity as a mage. Don't get stuck in the details. Just be happy it's not a bottle of laxatives. Fine. She made a good point. Just open the lid and ask for the person's name, but be careful, because if the target is resistant, the bottle will shatter. Aoko raised her eyebrows. Chodo a minute. If he's resistant, I can only use it when he's asleep, right? I've never tried it, to be honest, but is there anyone who responds to things in their sleep? You'd be surprised, but true, people like that are rare. In that case, one would have to weaken them until they were about to pass out. Oh, I almost forgot. Drugs or magecraft will also cause the bottle to break. Then what good is it? What won't break the damn thing? A tool is only as good as the person using it. Alice turned away as she replied, as if the topic no longer mattered to her. I know you're fond of using dainty tools like this. Is it a hobby of yours or something? Aoko asked, hoping Alice would deny it. Perhaps. So, are you going to take it or leave it? Without answering, Aoko dithered a bit before taking the bottle and putting it in her pocket. She figured she might be able to find some use for it. And now, is it time for school? Not quite. We're almost there, I think. 2 hours had passed and the clock struck 9. Their conversation had moved from the drawing room to the sunroom and had manifested into the kind of scene one would not expect in such a mansion. Ooh, hungry! Didn't really want to leave it to Tobimaru like this. A hot earthenware pot sat on the table. Aoko spat out complaints to no one in particular. She plucked food from it with her chopsticks. Tonight, they were eating a traditional Japanese meal that looked out of place in this mansion. When it came to the kind of Japanese hot pot where all one had to do was buy and boil ingredients, it was usually Aoko's responsibility. Alice sat across from Aoko as she silently poked at the pork with a fork. Yamashiro made it a point to say that Shizuki hadn't joined the club. It's not like I have the time or energy to keep track of every single student. Muttering about how there had to be some basic spell that fit her needs, she continued to flip through the pages. It goes without saying that she was looking for a way to deal with the witness from the previous night. And that makes a lot of sense. Magecraft's uses were many, but not all encompassing. Fundamentally, Magecraft was good for making things or phenomena that existed already, while more or less bypassing the time and resources conventional means would require. It was, however, unable to manifest phenomena that were impossible in this world. It was essentially an equivalent exchange that used a variety of shortcuts. A phenomenon made possible by human hands, actualized by an individual's power. That was generally what Magecraft was. A phenomenon made possible by human hands, actualized by an individual's power. Got it. To give a simple example, if Aoko were so inclined, she could make an entire lake appear at the mansion. Wow. That's pretty strong, I think, maybe. However, it had to be something that existed within this world. Nothing, not even the smallest matter, could escape this unbreakable law. Even if Aoko were to release a level of heat on par with an F-15 fighter jet's afterburner, that event would only be possible if the circuit named Aoko Ozaki acted as a temporary input variable in a magical formula. The derived equivalence was simply a value that already occurred in reality. If the variable in the equation did not exist elsewhere in reality, the spell would not be valid. The imaginary element known as magical energy was like a lie that could only slip its fantasy through the network of order at the moment of ignition. Giving form to the non-existent illusions invading reality was something the universe did not allow. Still, what was it? You can combine the imaginary factor ether with pretty much anything else since it's not real itself? Anything encompassed entirely of magical energy is little more than an illusion and will quickly dissipate. Even a typical field like a wall of thorns generally starts with the user planting the thorns first before using magical energy to grow and strengthen them in an instant. In the end, magical energy is just an easy-to-use fuel source while acting as a firework that ignites a phenomenon. It's actually a really helpful way to put it for the way that you're sort of setting up this world and how the magic works. So I think that this is a good place to end it. I've been having, this is nice. We're getting so much exposition now, and I'm really enjoying it so that I can learn more about the world that we're in and the world building. So anyway, I hope you guys enjoyed that. I definitely did. And I will see you guys in the next video. So for now, have a good rest of your day, and I will see you soon. Bye!